Hello, everyone. Good day, and welcome to the second chapter of our course. So, we have organizational behavior, understanding people at work. Now, let me just grab my laser pointer. Okay. Now, quick question. When you hear the word behavior, this word, what pops into your mind? So pause for a moment to think of your answers. Now, imagine putting a group of people together in one place, like in school or later in a workplace. Their behaviors mix, so sometimes in good ways, sometimes in challenging ones. That's what organizational behavior is all about. Understanding how people think, feel, and act at work. So, an organization is like a computer. The hardware is the office and tools, but the software is the people. Without the people working well together, nothing runs smoothly, right? So today we'll explore how understanding people at work helps us become better teammates, leaders, and future professionals. Okay, so before we dive in, let me give you a quick roadmap of what this chapter is all about. First, we'll look at the foundations of organizational behavior. Basically, why studying people at work even matters. Then we'll revisit classical theories, the big ideas from the early days of management that still influence how organizations run today. Then we have motivation, what makes people actually want to perform well at work. Then we have leadership approaches, different styles leaders use, and why some work better in certain situations. Then I'll also talk about organizational culture, the values and unwritten rules that shape a workplace life. We will also look at change and improvement methods because organizations, just like people, need to keep adapting. And finally, we'll connect everything to the contemporary trends shaping today's workplaces, things like remote work, diversity, and how technology is changing the game. So by the end of this chapter, you will have a strong foundation, knowledge to understand not just theories, but also how they apply to real world workplaces you'll be part of in the future. Now, let's define or organizational behavior, or OB. Okay, this is the systematic study of how people, when you say people, that includes individuals and groups, behave within the organization. Okay? So it pulls the ideas from psychology, sociology, and management to help us answer three big questions. So, what are these? How do people behave right now? How can we predict what they'll do next? Okay? And most importantly, how can we use these insights to make organizations more effective and people more satisfied? So, let me give you an example. Imagine a group project in class. One student takes the lead, another quietly does their part. Someone else barely contributes, and one member motivates everyone when the energy drops. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that when you're doing group works? So that is organizational behavior in action. If we understand these behaviors, who steps up, who holds back, who motivates, we can predict how the team will perform. And if we apply organizational behavior principles, we can actually improve the group's teamwork and results. So, organizational behavior is not only a theory, it's like a guide for understanding people at work or even right here in class. Now, when we study organizational behavior, we look at it through three levels: individual, group, and organizational. Now let's break that down with some examples. First, the individual level. This is about you, your personality, your motivation, how you make decisions, how you learn, and even your attitude towards change. So, example, some students are natural risk takers, while others prefer to play it safe. That's personality shaping behavior. Okay, second, we have the group level. Here we focus on how people work together. That is team dynamics, communication, conflict resolution, and leadership within the group. Okay, so example in a group project. So you try to observe your group. One person may naturally step up as the leader, while others contribute in different roles. How well the group communicates often decides if the project goes smoothly or becomes stressful. Okay, so finally we have organizational level. So this is the big picture. The company's culture, structure, processes, and strategies, okay, that makes the organizational level. So think about Google's culture of innovation versus a traditional bank's culture of stability and order. So both shape how employees behave at work. So remember, OB or organizational behavior is not only about one person, it's about how individuals, groups, and the whole organization interact to create success, or sometimes problems. Now, why should we care about this? Why should we care about OB? So, let me give you four main reasons. First, enhance performance. When we understand what motivates people, we can help them work smarter, not just harder. If a student who feels appreciated in a group tends to contribute more, right? So, same thing in the workplace. Second, better leadership. Leaders who know organizational behavior can make better decisions and actually inspire their teams. For example, a teacher who encourages instead of just giving orders, so the class responds better, right? Then we have improved communication. By studying group dynamics, we can learn how to reduce conflicts and build collaboration. So, like when classmates figure out how to divide tasks fairly, less drama, and better output. Okay, and lastly, the fourth, we have positive culture. Organizations that practice OB principles, create workplaces where people feel valued and supported. That's why companies like Google or Microsoft attract top talent, because it's not just about the salary, it's about the culture. So, in short, OB helps people work better, lead better, and create better organizations. Now, let's see how organizational behavior actually works in real life. So, here's a story. A call center was struggling. Imagine this. Every year, 40% of their employees quit. Why high stress, angry customers are boring, um, repetitive tasks, people felt undervalued and burned out. So, what did they do? They applied OB principles at three levels. First is at the individual level. They introduced flexible schedules so employees could balance personal life and work. Then there's group level. They created team-based recognition programs and peer support so people don't feel alone in dealing with tough calls. Then there's organizational level. They invested in training and built clear career paths so employees saw a future, not just a job. And the result? Turnover dropped from 40% to 15. That means customer satisfaction jumped by 25%. And employee surveys showed people were finally more engaged and satisfied. So this isn't just a theory, because it shows how understanding people at work can transform an organization. And it's not only call centers. Think about Google's focus on employee happiness or Toyota's teamwork culture. Both are rooted in OB principles that drive their success. Okay, before we get into modern workplaces, let's take a step back. Organizational behavior didn't just pop out of nowhere. It grew from different management theories over time. Think of it like building blocks. Each theory added new ideas about how people and organizations should work together. So, in this chapter, we'll explore four foundational theories. Some of it we have already discussed that still influence how companies are run today. So, why does this matter? Because knowing these theories helps us apply the right approach in the right situation. For example, sometimes a strict system works best, and other times a people-centered approach is the key. So let's walk through these classic theories and see how they shape the way we manage and lead today. Okay, so first off, let's start with one of the earliest approaches to classical theory. I believe we already have discussed this one, but let's look at it in the perspective of organizational behavior. This came out about in the early 1900s when industries were booming. The focus was efficiency. Okay, remember that in our previous chapter? The focus is efficiency, making organizations run like machines. That means strict hierarchies, clear, um, clear division of labor, formal rules, and a strong focus on productivity. So this is like everyone had their own cog in the machine. You do your part, I do mine, and together the whole system runs smoothly. A classic example is Henry Ford's assembly line. Instead of one person building an entire car, the process was broken into small repetitive tasks. One worker attached wheels, the other painted doors, another installed the engines, and this made production super efficient. Cars became affordable for everyday people. But here's the catch. Treating workers only as parts of a machine also led to problems like boredom, stress, and lack of motivation. It showed that while structure is important, people are not robots. So classical theory gave us efficiency, but also a lesson. Organization needs structure and attention to human needs. Now, after the classical approach treated organizations like machines, researchers began to notice something missing: the human side. The shift came from the famous Hawthorne studies. Remember that in our previous chapter? Hawthorne studies at the Western Electric Company. At first, researchers tested if things like better lighting or cleaner workspaces improved productivity. But here's what they found: productivity went up mainly because employees felt valued and noticed. In other words, people work better when they felt someone cared. Okay? The key insights here are social needs matter just as much as money, right? Employees' attitudes directly affect productivity. Informal groups like work or friendships influence behavior, and giving employees a voice in decisions boosts morale. Now, here's a modern example. Imagine a department manager sees her team's performance slipping. Instead of adding more rules, she starts weekly check-ins, asks for their ideas, and makes sure to recognize contributions. What happens? The team feels appreciated. They collaborate more and productivity rises. So, the big lesson of human relations theory is simple. People aren't just workers. They're humans, and when they feel valued, they give their best, right? Now, let's move into systems theory. This one says that organizations are like living systems because everything is connected, right? If one part changes, the whole system feels it. It works in four steps. First, the input. So that involves or includes resources, people, information, materials. Then we have transformation, how these inputs are processed through procedures, technology, and human interaction. Then we have outputs, the products, services, or results delivered to customers. Then we have feedback, the loop that sends information back so that the system can improve. Now, think of it like a human body. Food is your input, digestion is the transformation, energy is the output, and hunger signals or health checks are the feedback. Okay? If one organ fails, the whole body suffers. And here's a business example. In a restaurant, if the supply of fresh ingredients, that is input, is delayed, the kitchen, which is transformation, slows down. Meals, that is the output, are late. And customer complaints, that's the feedback, push the manager to fix the supply chain. So systems theory reminds us that no department or role stands alone. Every part of the organization is linked. Now let's see systems theory in action. Um, the example here that we have is with a hospital. Let me just grab again my laser pointer. Okay, in a hospital, doctors, nurses, admin staff, and support teams are all depend on each other. Everything must run in sync because when one system fails, patient care suffers. Here's an example. The medical supply department has delays in ordering essential items. What happens next? Okay, the example is when the medical supply department experiences delays in ordering essential supplies, what happens next? Surgeries get postponed, patient treatments are delayed, as stress builds up among the staff, the hospital's reputation takes a hit, and even finances decline. Notice how one small issue in supplies ripples through the entire hospital system. So that's exactly what systems theory teaches us. Organizations can't be fixed by looking at just one part. Solutions have to consider the whole system. Okay, now let's talk about contingency theory. Now, the key idea here is simple. There's no one best way to manage. Okay, remember that in the previous chapter. What works in one situation may fail in another. It all depends on the quote unquote context. Okay, so here's how it works. First, you assess the situation. Is it urgent? Is it complex? What's the team's experience? What's the culture like? Okay, so that's assessing the situation. Next, choose the right style. Okay, maybe a strict top-down approach is needed in a crisis, but a participative style works better for creative projects. Okay, that means you select management approaches that match the situation, requirements, and constraints. Also, you monitor and adjust. You keep checking if your approach is working, okay, and be ready to change when conditions shift. For example, in you imagine a technology company that faces a sudden cyber attack. Okay, the manager has to act quickly and give direct orders. That means no time for long discussions, but the same manager, when running a brainstorming session for a new app, should encourage open ideas and teamwork. See that two different scenarios. A first, a tech company facing sudden cyber attack. So how will the management behave? Okay, so in that example, he has to act quickly and give direct orders. The other issue is that when running a brainstorming session, that means deep thinking. Hello, morning. Thank you. When running a brainstorming session for a new app, that means they're creating something. Uh, that should be he should encourage open ideas and teamwork. That means contingency theory reminds us that effective leaders are flexible leaders. They adapt their style to the situation. Okay, next we have, let's see how contingency theory works in real life. Let me just magnify this. Okay, take one company, but look at it into a different situation. First, we have during a financial audit. Here, the company needs absolute accuracy and compliance. Okay, remember this is during a financial audit. Managers enforce strict rules. Okay, require detailed documentation, multiple approval levels, and zero tolerance for mistakes. Why is that? Because even a small error could cause legal or financial trouble. Now, shift to product innovation phase. That means this is again critical thinking, deep thinking, encouraging creativity. The same managers loosen up the rules, the strict rules, as compared to the previous scenario. They encourage brainstorming, flexible work setups, rapid prototyping. Okay, so teams are even allowed to fail as long as they learn and improve. So creativity and collaboration matter more than rigid procedures. You see the contrast? Same company, same managers, but completely different approaches depending on the situation. That's contingency theory in action. Effective management is about flexibility, matching the style to the context. Now, let's move on to one of the most important questions in organizational behavior. What motivates people to work? Motivation isn't just about salary. You will learn that when one day you will be employed, or maybe you will have your own businesses. So, motivation isn't just about salary, it's about what really drives human behavior. Why some employees go the extra mile while others just do the bare minimum. Over time, researchers have developed motivational or motivation theories to explain this. These give us practical frameworks for creating workplaces where people not only perform well, but also feel satisfied and engaged. In other words, if managers understand motivation, they can unlock higher performance and happier teams. Now, I know everybody is familiar with this as we already have taken this one up. Abraham Maslow suggested that people are motivated by 5 levels of needs, stacked like um, that it looks like a pyramid. The idea is you can't really focus on higher needs until the basic needs are met. Okay? At the base are the physiological needs, things like fair pay, breaks, a comfortable place to work. If those aren't covered, it's hard to care about anything else. Next is the safety needs. That means job security, health benefits, and a safe workplace. Then we move up to social needs. That's friendships, teamwork, uh, and the sense of belonging. Okay, can you relate to this, even in school? If those aren't covered, it's hard to care about anything else. Next are where are we now? Um, Social needs. Yeah, we're done with that. The esteem. Yes, we're on the esteem needs. Esteem needs that includes recognition, respect, and feeling like your contributions matter. A simple thank you from a boss or a teacher can go a long way here. Okay, and finally, we have at the top is self actualization. That's the need for personal growth, creativity, and doing meaningful work. This is where people feel most fulfilled. Okay, so Later, uh, okay, so for example, imagine an entry level employee. At first, their main concern is salary, that's physiological needs. Okay? Once they feel secure in the job, that safety, they start valuing teamwork and relationships. Okay? Remember, this is an entry level employee example. Later, they aim for recognition and promotions. That's esteem. And eventually, they look for personal growth or meaningful projects. So that's self actualization. So for managers, the lesson is clear. Different employees are motivated by different needs depending on where they are in the pyramid. Now let's bring Maslow's pyramid to life through an employee's journey. Meet Sarah. Let's name the actor Sarah here. When she starts her first job, her focus is on the basics. Okay, so paying rent, buying food, and keeping her job secure. That's the physiological and safety needs. After a few months, once she feels stable, Sarah starts building friendships at work. She enjoys being part of the team, attending office events, and collaborating on projects. This is the social needs or the social needs level. Then fast forward to say 2 years. Sarah is now a strong performer. What motivates her most? Recognition. Okay. She values praise from her boss, professional development opportunities, and being trusted with important decisions. That's esteem needs. Finally, as a team leader, Sarah seeks more than recognition. She wants meaningful projects. What else? Mentoring opportunities and the chance to express creativity. This is the top of the pyramid. This is self actualization. So, Sarah's story shows us how employees' motivations evolve over time. Managers who understand this can support their people at each stage of the journey. Okay, now we have Frederick Herzberg. So he suggested that job satisfaction and dissatisfaction don't come from the same place. He divided them into two sets of factors. Let me just first magnify this. This first factor is what we call the hygiene factors. And what are these? These include salary, okay, safe working conditions, fair policies, and job security. Okay? If these are missing, employees complain and feel unhappy. But here's the catch. Even if they're all present, they don't necessarily motivate people to go above and beyond. They just prevent dissatisfaction. Okay? So this is the hygiene factor. Then we will have the motivation factors. Okay? Things like recognition, meaningful work, growth opportunities, and responsibility. These are the true drivers of motivation. They inspire employees to perform at a higher level and feel satisfied with their work. Okay, so to give you an analogy, think of this like Hygiene factors are like brushing your teeth. They keep problems away, but they don't make you excited, right? Motivators, on the other hand, are like pursuing a passion project because they give you energy and fulfillment. So Herzberg reminds managers that pay and policies are important, but real motivation comes from making work meaningful. Okay, now let's proceed with the X and Y theory. I believe this one is also very clear to you. And just to give us a brief review, Douglas McGregor introduced two different views about employees, and these shape how managers lead. Theory X assumes employees dislike work, avoid responsibility, and only show up for the paycheck. Managers with this mind tend to be strict, controlling, and rely on close supervision. So try to picture a boss who constantly says, do this or else. Okay, so that's the theory X in action. On the other hand, we have the theory Y. Assume This theory assumes that employees actually enjoy work and they are self-motivated, they are creative, and they want to grow. So managers here give more freedom, delegate responsibilities, and focus on trust. So try to imagine a boss who says, here's the goal. I trust you to figure out the best way to get there. Okay? Now the key insight is this. A manager's assumption about people directly shape their leadership style, and that in turn affects employee performance and satisfaction. For example, in theory X, manager might get short-term compliance, but employees could feel stressed or disengaged. A theory Y manager might unlock innovation and long-term commitment because people feel trusted and valued. So the big question is, which theory do you think describes most workplaces today? X or Y? We have also the expectancy theory, which explains motivation almost like a math equation. So that means three things must line up for someone to feel motivated. First, expectancy. That means effort leads to performance. Employees ask, if I work harder, will my performance actually improve? Okay? Employees must believe their efforts will lead to better performance result. For example, a student studies all night, but if they believe the exam is impossible anyway, motivation drops. Second, instrumentality. That means performance leads to reward. Okay? Employees wonder, if I perform well, will I receive the promised rewards? Okay? Employees must trust that good performance will be recognized and rewarded. If a worker gives 110%, but the boss doesn't notice, why bother? Okay? Third is balance. Do I value reward? Even if the reward is given, it only motivates if it matters. For instance, giving an employee a free mug instead of a bonus might not have much impact. So motivation is strongest when effort clearly improves performance, performance is rewarded, and reward is truly meaningful. If any part is missing, motivation collapses. That's why motivation equals expectancy, instrumentality, and balance. It's like a chain. Break one link and the whole thing fails. Okay, let's see how expectancy theory works in real life. Okay, so meet Maria. She is a sales representative. She's deciding whether to go after a big client. She asks herself three questions. First is expectancy. Can I close this deal with extra effort? Instrumentality. Will management actually pay the promised bonus? And balance. Is the bonus amount worth the extra work? Okay? Only when all three factors are positive will she be fully motivated to pursue opportunity. Okay? So, for managers, this means they need to give employees the training and tools they need to build expectancy. Always follow through on promised rewards to build instrumentality. And make sure the rewards offered are things employees actually care about to build balance. In short, clear communication and meaningful rewards keep motivation strong. Okay, so I hope you have learned something from this example of Maria. Now let's talk about equity theory. Equity theory is all about fairness. Okay, as the word itself, equity. People constantly compare what they put into their job, their effort, their skills, education, time, loyalty, with what they get out. Salary, benefits, recognition, promotions, and here's the key. They also compare the ratio with others. Okay, so this is the fairness equation. My outcomes over my inputs is equal to others' outcomes over others' inputs. If the ratios feel equal, motivations stay steady. But if people feel shortchanged, problems start. For example, imagine two marketing specialists with the same qualifications. Let me zoom this in. Okay, two marketing specialists with the same qualifications and performance. One finds out the other makes, say, $5,000 more per year. The underpaid employee feels it's unfair, right? Because they have the same qualifications and the same performance. Um, the other one makes $5,000 more per year than the other. So the underpaid employee feels it's unfair, so she starts arriving late, cuts back on extra effort, and quietly looks for a new job. That's equity theory in action. When employees feel unfairly treated, their motivation drops and their behavior changes. So for managers, the lesson is clear. Fairness isn't just nice to have. It directly drives motivation and retention. Now, let's shift to leadership. Okay, one of the most important parts of organizational behavior is leadership. Why? Because even with talented employees and clear systems, without effective leadership, organizations struggle. Leaders set the tone, guide teams, and influence whether people feel inspired or frustrated. Over time, different leadership theories have emerged to explain how leaders can be most effective. Some focus on traits, others on behaviors, and some on adapting to situations. The big idea here is this: there isn't just one way to lead. Great leaders understand different approaches and adjust their style to fit their team's needs and their situation at hand. Okay, leadership ideas have evolved over time just like management theories. Let's trace the journey. First, we have the trait theory. So, early thinkers believed leaders are born, not made. Have you heard that quote? Leaders are born, not made. They looked for natural qualities like intelligence, charisma, confidence. The idea was if you don't have these traits, you can't be a leader. Next came behavioral theory. This shifted the focus from who leaders are, okay, to what leaders do, okay? That means task oriented versus people oriented. Researchers studied whether effective leaders are more task oriented or people oriented and showed that leadership can actually be learned. Okay, do you believe that so? Then we have the contingency theory. Remember, we are now under leadership theory. So, contingency theory, this view says there's no single best style. Same with the contingency theory in management. That could also be applied in leadership theory. Matching leadership style to context. So, a good leader adapts based on the situation. Strict in a crisis, participative in brainstorming, for example. Finally, we get down to modern theories like transformational leadership. Here, leaders inspire with vision, encourage personal growth, and motivate people to go beyond just doing their jobs. So think of leaders like uh, Steve Jobs or Jacinta Ardern, who inspire by vision and values. So evolution tells us this: leadership isn't fixed, okay? It's flexible, and today's best leaders inspire and adapt. Okay, leadership isn't just about who you are, it's about what you do. That's the idea behind behavioral leadership styles. There are two main approaches. We have task oriented and people oriented. This style, the first style of leadership under behavioral leadership style is the task oriented leadership. This style focuses on goals, deadlines, performance. The leader sets clear expectations, monitors progress closely, and makes sure works get done efficiently. Okay, these are it's especially effective in crisis when new teams or on tight complex projects. So it is like a coach saying, here's the game plan, stick to it and win. So that is task oriented. Then, on the other hand, we have people oriented. This style puts more focus on relationships, team morale, and individual needs. Okay? Leaders encourage participation and support collaboration, okay, and make people feel valued, okay. So it works best in creative projects, long-term teamwork, or situations where change and trust matter, okay. Imagine a coach saying, I believe in you, let's work together and play to everyone's strengths, as compared to the task oriented, wherein the coach or the manager says, here's the game plan, stick to it and win. Okay? So the truth is, the best leaders combine both styles, shifting their focus depending on what the situation and their team needs most. Okay? Now, here's a quick check. If you were leading a group project right now, would you be more task oriented or people oriented? Now, leadership can take very different forms, and two of the most common are transformational and transactional. So, transformational leaders, let me just magnify this. Yeah, transformational leaders inspire with a vision. They encourage innovation, act as role models, and challenge the status quo. Their goal isn't just meeting today's targets, it's unlocking people's potential for the future. Okay, for example, Elon Musk provides or he motivates Tesla employees with bold visions like sustainable transportation and space exploration. Um, he is pushing teams to achieve what once seemed impossible. And on the other hand, transactional leaders focus on structure, rewards, and performance. They set clear goals and monitor closely and use rewards or punishments to drive results. Okay, oh, I haven't moved it yet. Yes, this one. We're talking about the transactional already. So this is transactional leadership, and under it, again, they focus on structure, rewards, and what else? We have performance here, maintains existing systems, and provides clear expectations. For example, a sales manager sets monthly targets, offers bonuses for exceeding them, and takes corrective action if performance falls short. So both approaches have value. Transformational leadership sparks big change and creativity, while transactional leadership ensures stability and consistency. So the best leaders know when to inspire and when to manage by the rules. Now let's talk about organizational culture. Basically, the personality of a company is what we call organizational culture. They are the shared values, beliefs, and practices that shape how people behave at work. A simple way to put it is it's it's how things are done around here. Okay? How things are done around here. So culture shows up in many ways. Okay? So can you think about how culture shows up in our school in Kamsu? Symbols like logos, uniforms, or even the office layout. Think about how Google's open workspaces reflect creativity and collaboration. Okay, then stories and rituals. Okay, that frames up the organizational culture. So traditions, founding stories, that's why we have foundation days, or regular practices that reinforce values. Okay, that's why we have a culture of green kamsu. Okay, for example, some companies celebrate employee milestones with, for example, team lunches like that. Okay, so we also have core values such as integrity, innovation, teamwork, or customer services. We also have our core values at school because they are the guiding principles that shape decision. Then we have behavioral norms. This is the unwritten rules, like whether people are expected to stay late, speak casually, or address the boss formally. Those are behavioral norms. Then we have language. Okay, so the unique jargon or buzzwords only insiders understand. So tech companies are full of this. Okay, so in short, culture is everywhere, from the symbols on the walls to the way people talk, okay, in meetings and just like in a classroom. Culture influences whether people feel motivated, included, and connected. Okay, organizational cultures aren't all the same. In fact, they often fall into four main types. Let's go through them with examples. First, the clan culture. This feels like a family. Teamwork, participation, and consensus are key. Leaders act more like mentors. Loyalty is high because people feel cared for. So imagine small startups where everyone knows each other, or even a family business. Okay, so the second one is adhocracy culture. Here, innovation and risk taking rule. The focus is on creativity and adaptability. People experiment, they try new ideas, and move fast. Okay, that's adhocracy culture. A good example we can cite is the tech companies like Google or SpaceX. Okay, another company of Elon Musk, where bold ideas drive growth. Okay, third, we have market culture. Market culture is all about results and competition. Success means outperforming rivals, gaining market share, and hitting targets. Leaders push for achievement, okay? And rewards often go on top performers. Picture companies like Amazon, where efficiency and winning in the market are top priorities. Now we also have the hierarchy culture. This is a culture that values stability, structure, and control. There are clear rules, procedures, and a defined chain of command. For example, government agencies, banks, or traditional corporations. They're very predictable and organized. Okay, so each type has strengths and weaknesses. And the big lesson that we can learn from it is culture shapes how people work and how success is defined in an organization. Okay, this one is so small. Let me just again grab my laser pointer. I mean the magnify function. Okay, so to really see how culture shape organization, let's compare two very different workspaces, Google and government agency. So now we are defining Google. Okay, at Google, the culture is a mix of clan and adhocracy. That means the offices are colorful, open, and even have game rooms. Employees might work flexible schedules, wear casual clothes, and even spend part of their time on personal projects. Decision making is collaborative, okay? Often data driven and experimentation is encouraged. The values, innovation, creativity, and work-life integration. Okay, so this is for Google. So communication is open and informal, and anyone can pitch an idea. Okay, now contrast that with government agency. Okay, so in the government agency, that it reflects a hierarchy of culture. Offices are formal, okay? Layouts are traditional, And employees dress professionally. That's why we have, school uniforms for employees. Work practices follow standard hours and structured procedures like 8 to 5 work hour or 9 to 6 work hour. Okay? So decisions flow through a chain of command, guided by policies and rules. So the values are emphasized, um, or they are the values here emphasize public service, okay, accountability as well, and compliance. So communication is more formal, with documentation and respect for hierarchy at every step. Now, as you can see, two organizations, two different cultures. One thrives on creativity and flexibility, the other one stability and order. Neither is better. They're just designed to serve different purposes. All right. So, how do organizations actually improve behavior at work? Let's go through um, some proven methods. First, we have training and development. Employees need to grow with the organization. For example, banks, they often train staff on new financial software so they can serve clients better and stay efficient. Second, we have effective communication. That means clear, honest updates reduce stress and build trust, like weekly team meetings or open company announcement, help keep everyone on the same page. Third, we have motivation programs. That means recognitions. They go a long way. And things like employee of the month, bonuses, or even public appreciation can push people to perform at their best. Fourth is leadership development. Future leaders are built through coaching and mentoring. High potential employees are often given leadership training or cross department assignments to prepare them. Then, fifth, we have team building. Strong teams don't just happen. Do you believe so? Because they are built. Activities like retreats, outdoor challenges, or group problem solving strengthens trust and collaboration. And finally, we have change management. Big changes like mergers or new systems, they can be overwhelming. Okay? And companies that offer orientation sessions and cultural workshops make transitions much smoother. So the big lesson that we can get out of this is improving organizational behavior, or OB, is about continuous learning, open communication, recognition, leadership, and teamwork, and supporting people through change. Now, organizational behavior isn't stuck in the past. It's constantly evolving with today's workplace trends. And let's look at some of the biggest ones. Okay, this is again so minute. This is so small. Okay, first is diversity and inclusion. Companies now value different backgrounds, cultures, and perspectives, right? For example, Microsoft runs strong diversity programs that boost both innovation and employee satisfaction. Then we have the remote hybrid work, flexible work arrangements using technology platforms like the one we're using, Zoom, Slack, and Microsoft Teams. This trend accelerated post 2020 and fundamentally changed how teams collaborate. Okay, next we have AI and technology integration. From hiring to performance management, AI and automation are reshaping how organizations work, creating both opportunities and new challenges. Then we have the work life balance, the fourth. Organizations are realizing people aren't machines, right? So, flexible schedules, wellness programs, that's why we're having health breaks, and mental health support are now a priority. Okay, then we have corporate social responsibility, or what we call CSR. More companies take responsibility for society and the environment, for sustainable projects to community programs. Then we have employee engagement. People want more than a paycheck. They value meaningful work, feedback, growth opportunities, and a sense of purpose. Then lastly, we have globalization. Businesses now operate worldwide, okay, as we all know. Take McDonald's, for example. They adapt menus locally, but still keep their core identity globally. Same as with Jollibee, right? So whenever Jollibee franchise is, wherever it is in the world, they adapt to the taste of the citizens or the people there. So all of these trends are reshaping workplaces today. The big lesson: managers must keep adapting, developing new skills, and staying flexible to lead effectively in this modern environment. Okay, so that ends up our topic. The second topic that we have is in the organizational culture. So I believe everybody has learned something from it. Some of the topics here were just review from the previous chapters that we have, but we are looking through it in a lens of under organizational behavior. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time, and I believe you have learned something from it. God bless us all.